Lance Meadow with you. Columbia preparing for its final road game, visiting the Brown Bears in Providence, Rhode Island. As always, we are now joined by head coach Al Bagnoli. Coach, let's start with the big victory over Harvard. First time that the school has won there since 1995. The 2 block field goals is what stands out, but I want to actually focus on Seth Parker's return. I thought that was a huge turning point to the game. Now, he ran 66 yards to get 33 yards, but the fact that not only did you capitalize on the block, but you got into Harvard territory as a result of that.
Yeah, I think there was a couple special team plays, that being one, and Carter McFadden had a return when they punted deep from their territory that put the ball in the 14. And those created 2 short fields, which created scoring opportunities, which helped our offense and ultimately decided the game. So it was good to see because, have spent so much time and energy and work on special teams and historically have been pretty solid in them. And we've been anything but this year. So it was good that all that work and that emphasis and the kids are maturing in front of our eyes and enable us to do some really good things in the return game, in the field goal block area, in our punt game and our ability to flip the field. So there was a lot of good storylines, and they were really the prime contributors in how we were able to win the game.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up because we've been talking the last several weeks about the ball not necessarily always bouncing your way on special teams. This is a game where that unit put its stamp on the victory. How much pride does that group take in what they were able to produce after they had to go through the ups and downs of the early stages?
I mean, hopefully they'll take a tremendous amount of pride in their accomplishments, and we stress it just as much as we stress offense and defense. We try to practice it as much as we possibly can. We try to put them in every disadvantage look during the week, so when they get to a game, they're prepared for it. So it's something that we value, and we recognize that ultimately the close games are going to be decided by special teams as much as they're going to be decided by offense or defense. So it was kind of validation of everything that we've been saying, and that their ability to just kind of work through some of those earlier problems, their ability to kind of stay focused and build some momentum. So finally, when we got opportunities, we were able to capitalize on it.
Well, and speaking of capitalizing on opportunities, you look back at this game, if you didn't watch any of this, you looked at the box score, you'd say Columbia turned the ball over 4 times. How did they wind up winning the game by 1? And I'm sure you acknowledge that, but your defense and your special teams held them to just 3 points off of those 4 turnovers. How big was that in terms of the flow of the game?
It was huge because, when you just look at it, our third down defense was tremendous, and I think that's one of the keys, that when there was a turnover, we've kind of negated some of the damage that potentially could be caused off of the turnover, so that was positive. And then, when you look at 3 blocked field goals, you almost have to consider those as turnovers because it's really series ending. You lose possession and you don't get points.
Sure.
So ultimately when the smoke cleared, it was 4-4, which now seems a little bit more, realistic that you can win a game because now at least it's even in the turnovers. But, it's an area that we've stressed so well, and I'm not sure what's causing it. And some of it, one of it was Harvard kid did a really nice job. Our tight end got walloped from a kid coming in from the offside, and it was one of those collision fumbles, which you can understand, it's football. But some of it was not. It was as much us. So, but ultimately, we're able to hang in there, kind of negate some of those scoring opportunities and find a way to win at the end.
Speaking of offsides, when you win a game by 1, it's very easy to put the 2-point conversion under the microscope. You had the extra point. You decided to go for 2. We see this, coach, in the NFL a lot. When there is a similar play, then the team decides, you know what, we're going to move it up. We're going to go for 2. What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I mean, again, you kind of have to look at everything in totality. We certainly went into this game as the underdog. And we're on the road against a good team in a very difficult environment. And I think when you have opportunities to steal a point, and percentage-wise, it's a good bet, then you have to take that opportunity. And that's what presented itself. And, I want to kind of send a message to our kids that, to be close in this game isn't what we're here for. To tie and play overtime is not what we're here for. We're trying to win the game, and hopefully that message was served. Now, obviously it had a good outcome because we made it, and if we didn't make it, would people be saying, well, why the heck did they go for 2? But I thought it was absolutely the right thing to do, and it sent the right message to our kids. And, thank God we were able to execute it, and Ryan kind of fell forward and just broke the plane, and that's all it took.
It's always nice when everything falls into place, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was like, 8-9 minutes left when that happened, and who knows if that was going to be the last possession or not, or how it was going to turn out, but at that point in time, it seemed like the right thing to do.
Well, on the topic of possessions, let's turn to Brown, because there's a team that has a lot of possessions and runs a lot of plays, as has been documented in terms of the stats. They don't have E.J. Perry anymore. He's now on an NFL roster. But how much last season did he bring out a lot in the talent around him that they're still benefiting from that?
Yeah, I think, again, he gave everybody confidence in that offense, and I think they carry that confidence over into the offseason, into spring, and into this season. And again, you don't singularly replace a quarterback. That's once in a generational type player. He's good enough to be in the NFL. But I think the surrounding cast have matured from last year. They're a lot more familiar with the offense and defense schemes. They play with a lot better demeanor and confidence as a result of all the success they had last year. And you can kind of see it. They expect to move the ball. They expect to make plays. They expect to score points. So we're going to have our hands full.
And they have the #1 passing attack in the Ivy League, so clearly they don't shy away from going to the air. What's the challenge for your defense this week? When you go up against, the last few weeks, you've been going up against a lot of physical-minded teams in the trenches. What's different about Brown that maybe you haven't necessarily seen over the last few weeks?
Well, I mean, if you go back 2 weeks ago, Yale was averaging 220-something yards a game rushing the ball. So that became our focal point. Harvard has the best tailback in the league and a big, stout offensive line. And maybe second or third in the league in rushing, so that had to become a focal point. They're a little bit different. They lead the league in passing. They're not great statistically rushing the ball. They do it enough to keep you balanced. So we just now have to really change the way we approach the game. And okay, what are we going to do to contain the receivers? What are we going to do to stop some of the vertical plays? What are we going to do to try to win on third down? Because they've done a really good job with the number of first downs they have in a game and keeping possessions and running plays and wearing you out. And so there's got to be a whole strategy of substitution patterns, getting your defensive linemen in and out of the game rested, because they're going to throw the ball 50 to 60 times a game, and your defensive linemen are going to get tired chasing them. So you got to be able to have a substitution pattern that makes sense. And, so there's a whole different approach than what we saw against Harvard and what we saw against Yale.
Now, before I let you go, the most important question. This is the first time you're going to Brown since they changed from grass to artificial turf. So is there not that big of a deal in terms of what spikes guys need to wear and so forth? You're not stressing out as much as you were previously?
No, again, it's been a long time coming, and I think all of us, if we had a great grass field, would prefer playing on grass. But I think in the Northeast, unless you have a crazy maintenance budget, it's really hard. So this was long overdue, in my opinion, because the field, by the time we got there, got dangerous, and it was very soft. We had too many kids, both at Columbia and at Penn, suffer from field-related injuries, whether it was ankle sprains or whether it was knee trauma or whether it was hamstring issues or groin issues. So I feel a lot better that, from a safety perspective as well as a weather perspective, especially when you're playing in week 9, that this thing will be a much better surface for us to play on.
So Columbia visits Brown in Providence. Coach, greatly appreciate the time. Best of luck this weekend.
Appreciate it.
Kickoff noon Eastern. You can watch on ESPN Plus, and you can listen on GoColumbiaLions.com.